Okay, this is my mom, Sonia Forrest. She is the office manager for Dr. Lovelace's office, PCP in Mesquite. She also has stage 3 anaplastic astrocytoma, which is a form of brain cancer, and is considered a terminal patient. So today I'm going to be asking her questions for my ethics class, my Psych 205 class for Miss Proctor. So are you ready for some questions? Okay. So, would you prefer to have not known that you have cancer? Or in other words, would you prefer that your doctor never have told you?
I would have preferred to know. I think understanding what had caused some of the symptoms made it a little easier to tolerate things that were happening. And I think it put pieces of the puzzle together that we were struggling with for several years.
So, as far as like daily living, do you think that it affects your daily life, or do you feel like if you hadn't have known you had cancer, you would be living any differently?
I think, yeah, it affects my daily life every day. There's, are you talking like in quality of life? Like now that I know I have cancer, am I appreciating my days more?
Yeah, or just, materialistic things or values, what you're grateful for, do you think those things have changed since diagnosis?
Definitely. Since being diagnosed with the cancer, the little things like when I celebrated my last birthday, typically you're like, oh, another birthday when you get to be this age. But now I'm like, yay, another birthday. I get to go forward and move one more day. And when I reached that year mark of having brain cancer for 1 year, that to me was a big deal that I'd made it 1 year with brain cancer, because you can definitely see so many that didn't. So yeah, I appreciate getting to see my children grow up. I appreciate getting to continue my work here at the office, and my marriage and things that I enjoy in life.
Okay. What are your thoughts on holistic medications, and what do you think that some ethical dilemmas can, like, why do you think ethical dilemmas can arise within patients choosing, holistic meds, for example, medical marijuana, brain foods, essential oils versus like big pharma, and why do they choose like what's right? What makes it right to them?
Well, I have the luxury of being on both sides of that coin, because not only am I a patient, but I work with patients every day. So I get to see the pharmaceutical companies come through here and peddle products, and I get to see medications that have actually worked for people and made a huge difference in life. And then I've been on the side of being a patient, taking chemo that was between $3,000 and $8,000 a month for chemo treatments, and it almost killing me, the treatment itself. Holistic treatments are the basis of Western medicine. That's where all medicine started, was with these Eastern theories in herbs and putting things together that would treat ailments. It's as old as time. That's where medicine came from. So I think there needs to be more of a balance. But when I go to my oncologist and we brought up, what about holistic treatments for cancer, or for any things that I'm going through, they said a good thing was the most holistic thing you can do for your body is to eat right and get exercise. There's no better thing to do for your body. There's no greater vitamin to put in it. There's no better oils to rub on it. Treat your body right, exercise, and eat right. Fuel for daily living, not just for fun. Food for fuel, not food for fun. So I think people sometimes get holistic wrapped around a bubble that it has to be something that they sell at GNC or something, yeah. Right? Something hippies do, when it's not. It's things we can do in everyday, chemicals that we can eliminate in our lives and things like that can make it a little more of a holistic environment. But I do believe in modern medicine. I do believe in pharmaceuticals. There is the element of money and of Congress and lobbyists and politicians getting involved, and these insurance companies being a little out of control right now on cost and people having access to some of these medicines. So there needs to be a balance where the FDA doesn't take 10 years to approve something that's been over in Europe for 15 years already, and give everybody equal access to these things. But I believe there should be a fine balance, and I think everybody should have the option to pick for themselves what works best. And there should be doctors that facilitate that and encourage it. Because just because my oncologist may prefer a chemo that didn't work for me, if they are completely closed down to other types of treatments that may work for me, then they've just cut my lifespan shorter by not listening or not helping me. And I think it's a doctor's responsibility to see that patient individually for what may work for that patient. Medicinal marijuana is something that's a hot topic for a lot of places. Being a cancer patient, a lot of my friends came out of the woodworks at the very beginning of this and said, if you want marijuana, I know where to get it. That's not, that's not what we're talking. It's not that kind of a situation.
Well, and there's a big stigma that smoking marijuana is the only way to medicinally treat yourself, but I think for cancer patients, this is kind of off the board here, but I think for cancer patients, CBD should be used more frequently. It has no THC. It doesn't get you high.
Right.
And it is just basically regenerating cells and stopping seizures, which
and I have seizures.
You suffer from.
Definitely if things weren't working, because I've had some breakthrough seizures, I've had some difficulty balancing the tremors and things like that. So if it came down to it, I think some of the fear and stigma, like you were saying, is I can't drive to work high. How am I going to get I do federal DOT physicals, federal drug screens. I can't be on a substance and do these drug screens and be certified, So I think the stigma is that it's, this plant that some guy grew out in his backyard, and it's not. It's a much different substance that's provided. It's a more pure substance that's provided. It's definitely done in a more concentrated environment. But I think that those options should be available if you're talking to somebody who's facing their mortality in a very short time span. It should be my choice, and your physician should help facilitate that.
But as we're talking about ethics, just because that's ethical doesn't mean it's just. Especially in Texas, there's a legality issue here. Facing several holistic medications, and the way that they're used, because it is an individual experience, case by case basis. And so there, as a doctor or somebody in the nursing field, you can be like, well, this is going to help you, but legally I can't tell you that, or I can't give you those resources.
That's where the FDA comes in with their testing. They have these studies that go so far back, and they have large groups of people that they test with, animal testing, people testing, to where they can back statistics for these medications. The problem with some of these vitamins or these minerals or these oils you don't necessarily have those test groups. You don't have the money to put into those test groups, when the government's funding one thing and you're trying to do it on your own. However, we do have time tested, there's peppermint works great for an upset stomach. Time tested. It's not something you have to go and give it to the FDA for 10 years and say, let's spend $3 million finding out if peppermint really does. So it is that balance, like you were saying, that ethical. We can't comment in my office on over-the-counter products. We are not schooled in over-the-counter products. We don't take classes. We don't do research on it. So we shy away from, and we refer that back to the pharmacist, who deals with more of both over-the-counter, and we deal mostly with pharmaceuticals. So we have the pamphlets, and we have the training, and we have the reps that come in and give us the the information, but people still, well, I saw on WebMD where there's a lawsuit about da 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 da. Of course you did. Again, it goes back to me treating the patient for what's best individually. That becomes very difficult when you're trying to have, especially in a family practice, where you're doing large volumes of patients, and it gets to be flu season. You get in that mindset of treating everybody with flu, because everybody's got the flu. There's several strains of the flu. People react differently to the flu. Everybody's different. I have anaplastic astrocytoma. I have a brain cancer. There may be 6 other people come in the same day with that same brain cancer, but mine's in my left frontal lobe. There's maybe parietal, there's maybe occipital, so each person, to me, in an ethical world, would be seen as an individual made up of their backstory, what works for them, what they're comfortable with. You can prescribe me chemo from this point all day long and tell me it's going to work. Statistics show it's going to work. I will not do it. So for me, it would not work.
Well, talking about chemo and treatment, our next option for your treatment, since the chemo is not working, is radiation. There has been talk with your doctors about the radiation, since you are radiating your brain. Radiation is not picky choosy on which cells it radiates, and it could leave you with some lasting brain damage. So, on said question or statement, I guess the question arises that do you believe it is ethical to treat the disease and lower the quality of life? Do you think it's worth it? Do you think it's ethical? Do you think,
how much we put somebody through to try
just
to find a cure or extend life?
But what quality of life is extended?
That's why I quit chemo in January. We were running up against the problem that the tumor was stable, wasn't growing, so we were getting the response we wanted from the tumor. However, I couldn't do anything. I couldn't function. My white cell count was in the ones. It was 1.8. My platelets were down to 88. So I couldn't even bounce back in order to do the next treatment. Out of 7 months of treatments, I was supposed to do 1 a month. I completed 4. I was never even able for my body, and to this day, my white cell count has not rebounded. I'm still in the low 2s. So if there's, again, it's an individual choice. I think it should be my choice at the end of the day. If there's a light at the end of that tunnel that says, we have a cure down here, it's going to suck the road that you're going to take, but there's a cure right there, and you have a pretty good chance of getting to that cure, what are you going to do? Me being me, I'm going to run for that cure. Dr. Lovelace had colon cancer, had surgery, went through a year of chemo. He's clear and free of cancer. It sucked for that year. His life was miserable. And he doesn't mind me saying this. We tell everybody his story. I'm not violating his HIPAA. We tell everybody his story so that people will learn to go get colon screenings. But he had a cure. There was a chance of a cure. So he went down that road and he stepped on that glass and he forged through the fire and he did all that, throwing up and losing hair and all that stuff, because there was that option, a great chance of a cure, highly probable. I don't have that chance. So I can go down that path and I can make myself super miserable to end up sitting in the exact same spot. That's all my choices are. Radiation is my next step. We call it our hip pocket card. We're keeping that card in our hip pocket because when we pull it out, it's going to be, we know pretty much where we're going from there. The problem, they have gamma knife radiation. They have radiation down to a very fine
like a beam.
Like a beam. There you go. And can do very tiny areas now. It's not like this widespread when my grandmother died of this cancer. It's not like this widespread radiation where you just lay your head down and they just radiate your entire head. It's very finite now. That being said, the tumor's in my left frontal lobe. So I've already had a piece of my brain scooped out. So we've already damaged stuff that, has to reroute itself and make these new highways for this information that goes across. And my frontal lobe holds my personality, and it holds my short-term memories, and it holds a lot of things that are very significant to me living a quality of life and doing what I love to do. Radiating that might shrink the tumor, of course, but it, like you said, it's going to have catastrophic, damaging, collateral damage. There's going to be parts of my brain that are tapped by this, that even the best mapping of the brain still doesn't know what's going to happen. In our best, we didn't know when I woke up from surgery, was I going to have significant permanent memory loss? Was I going to remember the last 10 years of my life? Was I going to no longer be able to laugh? Would I not understand and register laughter? Would I not understand and register sadness, depression, and get when it was the right time to be sad? Was I going to laugh when it was time to be sad, and was I going to cry when it was time to be happy? Those things can get very mixed up and very crossed, but the radiation is our last step. I will probably try it, and see, and then make that decision. I'm very lucky to have an oncologist that works with me and lets me make my decisions for what I feel I'm comfortable doing and how far I want to take this. And her, my nurse practitioner, my oncology nurse practitioner, is a holistic. She's trained in holistic medicine, and she got her certification there first before she became a Western medicine nurse. So I do have the best of both worlds over there.
Yeah. Do you feel sometimes that you are ridiculed for being a terminal patient or treated differently for being a terminal patient, even though you don't look sick?
That's what everybody says. I don't look sick. Everybody says, and I have this massive scar where my skull was cracked open and my brain was, part of my brain was scooped out. It's kind of like when I got back from combat and had PTSD.
You can't see that
I was sick, but nobody knew I was sick. You can put on all the best makeup and you can dress in the nicest clothes, but at the end of the day, I still had PTSD. Same thing here. I come into work, I'm able to do my job for the most part. I have memory issues, I have seizures sometimes, tremors, whatever. But I get to get up every day and I'm walking, I'm ambulatory. So I look like I'm healthy. I'm the only person I've ever met that put on weight during chemo.
You have your hair.
I have my hair. So I feel sometimes, in all honesty, being very serious, I let myself get down sometimes because I feel a little discriminated against because you can't see my illness. You can't see my sickness. And not that I need pity or whatever, but it does take its toll on me. And I am going through something that's a huge, huge medical issue for me, for my family. It affects my coworkers. This is a huge impact, and for it to feel like it's being a little lessened is not fair some days. There's days when I just want to say, okay, no, I'm not limping. I'm not in a wheelchair. I'm not missing an arm or leg, but I still have something that's devastating to me, and I have to deal with it every day. I have to live with it every single day. So when people find out, they're like, oh my God, you don't look sick. I had no idea. Yes, I am. Yes, I am.
On that same topic, this is our last question. You are ridiculed or dehumanized or made a little less of a person by life insurance companies because you're terminal. So life insurance company, the way I was explained by you, will not insure you because they know you're going to die.
Correct.
And basically I guess they'll lose all their money, that they invested in you to insure a life that's not insured. So from the outside looking in, or from the inside looking out, I guess, do you believe that's an ethical decision to not insure somebody? Now let's not confuse ethical and just.
Right.
Or morally correct.
Personally, I'm offended by it. Personally, it's, to me, unethical because when I got back from combat, I lost my military life insurance because I was no longer insurable for PTSD. The suicide rate is outrageous right now, the substance abuse rate, things like that. So, there were multiple insurance companies that had already turned me down for life insurance because of the PTSD. So here comes brain cancer and trying to get life insurance. We just bought a new house, we want to insure it. I want to leave something behind to my children. There are policies out there. Not everybody would tell me no, but the ones that would tell me yes, I couldn't afford. So part of it, I think, is unfair, unethical. My life is just as valuable as the next one. I have a right to insure myself and provide for my family as the next one. Flip side of that, being in the medical field, there's a business side to it. You can't lose money in the business. And of course these companies, well, it's $1 billion company. They can afford, yes, it's $1 billion company because they've worked hard to make that money. Johnson & Johnson has like 19 pharmaceutical companies underneath it. Johnson & Johnson's worth billions of dollars.
But if they insured everyone,
but if they gave if they gave the medicine to every single insurance provider, Humana, Aetna, whatever, and didn't get reimbursed for that medicine, at some point the system would crash. At some point the system would fall. So we have unfortunately created that in America, to where there's not that equal basis where everybody gets everything, and there's not this socialized system. So at this point in time in this country we live in and the way things are, it has to be subjective. It has to be, people have to be able to pick and choose and insure the ones that they feel confident are going to continue to make that company stand on its own 2 feet. Otherwise, if they insure everybody, then that company will go under. You know, if you insure every single DUI driver out there on your average car insurance, then nobody's going to have car insurance, because the high risk drivers are going to go out there, continue to have wrecks. It's going to cost everybody money, and the company can't stay afloat like that. So I'm on both sides of that coin. I'm the patient, and I think it's unfair. I think it is unethical, because you're looking at me and you're determining I have an expiration date. You're deciding I'm not going to be valuable, to insure. Not fair. I may live 20 years. Highly unlikely, but I might. As some people do it. So why wouldn't I be one of the ones that does? Flip side, I'm in the medicine business. If these insurance companies can't continue to make money and stay on the profitable side, then we're not going to be here. We don't get reimbursed. The patients aren't going to have insurances to pick from, because they're going to fold. Insurance companies fold every day. So it's a double-edged sword for me, because unfortunately I understand too much of it. So I'm not as, I can't be the pity party on my side.
Yeah.
And be on just that side.
It's hard to be
it's hard to be educated, and be unbiased. Yeah.
Well, I think that's all the questions I have, but I appreciate you answering them for me.
Okay, peace out.